little room does Prime Minister Theresa May have to manoeuvre with UK lawmakers at this point?
Well, what she's not doing is showing leadership. So that has been lacking throughout the last 2.5 years. And instead, the Prime Minister has ended up in hock to the extreme right wing of her party, the ERG. And that's really been putting party interest above the national interest. I think the Prime Minister 2.5 years ago had plenty of room to manoeuvre in terms of trying to bring the country together. She could have reached out across the party divide, and that's only happened very belatedly. But even now, you know, she is the Prime Minister, she is leading the government. And all of the preparations that you're talking about, all of the contingency that business is having to put in place for the possibility that we might crash out of the EU without a deal in just 6 weeks' time, that is a position that no Prime Minister should reasonably be putting the country in, and which she could have prevented, and she could still prevent, by making it clear that that is an outcome that she will not allow to happen.
How likely is the prospect of no deal? I know everyone keeps telling me nobody wants the no deal to happen. Well, perhaps apart from a small minority. How likely is that no deal now?
Well, I think it all depends on the decisions that are made by Theresa May and others within her government, because I would have imagined that, knowing what she knows about the impact on our security, about the impact on our economy, that she should not even contemplate that. But from speaking to people in the Conservative Party, there are those that say they think she really is prepared to do that. Now, there are others in government who are very responsible, who in that case will need to step up to the plate. Now, I don't think we're going to see that today in the votes in Parliament. Maybe that might happen in 2 weeks' time. But I would say to them, you know, the clock is ticking. We are scarily close to that March 29th deadline, a deadline which, by the way, should never have been imposed. We should not have had Article 50 triggered when we didn't have a plan about what was going to happen, about what our negotiating position was even going to be. The Cabinet didn't even come to an agreement about that until well more than a year after the triggering of Article 50. So it really is an atrocious mess, and it's going to take leadership from those within government, or indeed for Parliament to take it out of the hands of government to rule out no deal, and that's what has to happen. Ultimately, the way out of this is a people's vote.
But Jo Swinson, good morning from Zurich. The Prime Minister is not doing a terrible job in terms of negotiation. If you take away the no deal spectre, then it means that she doesn't have the stick to give the carrot with and saying, guys, vote for my deal.
Look, I mean, I don't think, first of all, the Prime Minister's deal itself is not like that's some kind of great deal for our country. And so I think we're beyond the point at which she could conceivably make the case that no deal needed to be on the table. You know, we are 6 weeks away from this potentially happening, and it is more serious than that. We shouldn't even be in this level of negotiation at this point. She needs to be taking her job seriously and ruling that out. And we need to be able to say, look, there is a deal that we already have, which is membership of the European Union, and that is the best deal. The will of the people is not something that never changes, and indeed there's many reasons to believe the will of the people has changed. Poll after poll shows that there is much more support now for staying in the European Union. Given how huge this decision is for our country, the severe consequences there will be for generations, it is time to put this back to the people and stop this Brexit chaos.
But Jo Swinson, we're like 43 days away from that March 29th deadline. Is now the time to say, actually, let's forget a second referendum. Let's not put it to the people anymore. Let's just try and find a solution that does not involve a no-deal Brexit.
Well, putting it to the people is that solution. So we've got very strong views from the European Union countries that if we ask for an extension of Article 50 in order to hold a people's vote, that will be something which will be granted and can absolutely happen. And of course, before the 29th of March, we ultimately have, thanks to the court judgment in December, the option to decide unilaterally to withdraw that Article 50 notification if that's what we choose to do. So, you know, we do have some important cards to play here. We are not at this stage dependent necessarily on those other European countries, and therefore we're in a strong position to ask for that extension, to make sure that we do not embark on this just because the Prime Minister decided to trigger Article 50 without a plan. Should not mean that the country is sort of in a sort of chaotic no-deal scenario. There is a way out of this, and we should make sure this is put back to the people. It is too important to just go ahead and say, well, just because on one day that's what people said, despite the fact we now know how bad this is going to be, even under Theresa May's deal. We need to ask the people again.